When an authoritative government official crosses the line and violates your constitutional rights, you immediately demand justice. You want to take them to court. But the legal system isn't a single, straightforward track. If you're dealing with a crime, a government prosecutor handles the charges. If it's a standard civil lawsuit, it involves private parties suing each other over a dispute. Suing the government itself for damages requires a third, highly specialized track, a federal mechanism known as 42 U.S.C. Section 1983. Section 1983 acts as a technical filter. Because the stakes involve the government's own liability, a single procedural error allows a judge to dismiss the case before the facts are debated. Surviving this process requires a flawless navigation of a legal landscape specifically calibrated to protect government functions from personal lawsuits. The first mistake is naming the state or the police department as the primary defendant. Under the 11th Amendment, states and state agencies are legally non-persons under Section 1983. You cannot sue a state for money. Instead, a plaintiff must target the specific official involved, or the municipality itself. Internal departments, like a sheriff's office or police precinct, are not considered separate, suable entities. If the lawsuit fails to target a legally recognized person, the case will be terminated before a jury ever hears the facts. The second mistake is assuming a mayor or police chief is automatically liable for their subordinates' actions. In standard civil litigation, employers are routinely held responsible for their employees' conduct. However, Section 1983 explicitly rejects this principle. Holding a city accountable requires proving the rights violation was the direct consequence of an official municipal policy or practice. Plaintiffs can also attempt to prove deliberate indifference, where the city's failure to train its employees made a constitutional violation almost inevitable. To win, you must prove the fault lies with the city's underlying system, not just the individual officer on the beat. Mistake number 3 is failing to establish the defendant acted under the color of state law, meaning they actively utilized authority granted by the government during the incident. Even when those hurdles are cleared, plaintiffs often underestimate the defensive shield of qualified immunity. This doctrine grants officials 2 layers of protection. Their actions are first weighed for constitutional reasonableness. Then they receive immunity unless their actions clearly violated existing law. To bypass this protection, a plaintiff must prove the specific right violated was already clearly established by prior court decisions. This legal buffer ensures that only the most undeniable, historically recognized abuses of state power ever make it to a jury. For those who navigate these traps successfully, a Section 1983 judgment can include compensatory damages for medical bills, lost wages, and emotional distress. Furthermore, federal law can compel the government to pay the plaintiff's attorney fees, allowing citizens to secure high-powered representation they otherwise couldn't afford. This brings us to the final mistake, relying solely on federal law. State legislatures often create alternative pathways that bypass these federal restrictions. California's Tom Bain Civil Rights Act, bolstered by Senate Bill 2, now prohibits police and prison guards from using a qualified immunity defense in state-level lawsuits. The U.S. Constitution provides the framework for our rights, but those rights are not self-executing. Winning justice requires a mastery of the procedural mechanics of Section 1983 and the strategic use of state-level law to hold power accountable. When an authoritative government official crosses the line and violates your constitutional rights, you immediately demand justice. You want to take them to court. But the legal system isn't a single, straightforward track. If you're dealing with a crime, a government prosecutor handles the charges. If it's a standard civil lawsuit, it involves private parties suing each other over a dispute. Suing the government itself for damages requires a third